and welcome back to Bump to Business Owner. I'm your host, Caroline Marshall, and today I'm delighted to welcome Sophie Catto and Nicole Goodwin, joint managing directors of AllBright Everywoman, following the merger of two of the UK's most influential organisations dedicated to advancing women in business. Together, they lead a global learning, leadership and community platform that supports women at every stage of their careers through world-class learning, corporate partnerships, events, awards, and experiences designed to help women connect, grow and thrive. Nicole began her career as an investigative journalist, building more than 20 years' experience creating and scaling international events and membership communities. Prior to joining Everywoman, she held senior leadership roles across global businesses and publishing houses, including C5 and IQPC. Sophie brings over 18 years' experience across media, publishing, and purpose-driven organizations, having held senior commercial leadership roles at Condé Nast, including Associate Publisher of House and Garden and the World of Interiors and Commercial Creative Director of Tatler. She has built her career at the intersection of storytelling, strategic partnerships, and community building. Today, Sophie and Nicole are leading AllBright Everywoman at a time when conversations about women, work, and leadership are evolving rapidly. Through their latest initiative, Motherhood Works, they are shining a spotlight on one of the biggest factors shaping women's careers: motherhood. Whilst we have rightly spent years discussing the gender pay gap and women in leadership, many mothers still face challenges around career progression, ambition, financial security, and balancing work with family life. Yet motherhood is often left out of the conversation. In this episode, we'll be exploring why motherhood remains such a defining issue, what mothers really need to thrive without feeling forced to choose between ambition and family, and how communities like AllBright Everywoman are helping drive change. We'll also discuss the realities of leadership, the power of female networks, the challenges facing women building businesses in traditional female sectors, and why motherhood should be recognised as not a limitation, but as a strength. Nicole, Sophie, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited. We're recording in advance of Motherhood Works events, which I'm joining in a couple of weeks, which I'm so excited for. And honestly, I'm almost 8 years into my motherhood journey, and I would have loved to have seen all this stuff in year one. So I think that's how much change has happened in the past 8 years, which I can't wait to delve into with you. You guys have come through such different routes. So, what did your career journeys? Is this where you expected where you'd be when you left university or graduated or started your first jobs, that this is the sort of work you get to do today?
No, I didn't really envisage it. From an early age, I wanted to be a journalist. And my drive was I really wanted to showcase amazing stories and highlight incredible role models was my aim. I essentially finished a degree in journalism and then started working as an investigative journalist, which I love. And then moved over here, worked on a few documentaries. So I'd moved from South Africa to the UK. Worked on a few documentaries and then realized I loved working in a team. And that's when I fell into the world of events. I used to get speakers for talk shows. Now I was getting speakers for corporate events. And that's where my journey began. And when I started looking for something with a little bit more meaning, that's when I ended up finding Everywoman. And, the focus on advancing women in business is just really dear to my heart. And I just haven't left. I love working in this space. I didn't envisage this is where I would go, but I'm really pleased that this is where I've ended up.
Oh. So can I ask how becoming a mother influenced your career, ambition, definition of success? What did that little journey look like for you? Or big journey, I should say.
Yeah, it is indeed a big journey. It was really interesting because I had my little girl first. She's now 13. And at that point, I was general manager at a large conference company. I think at that point, coming back from work, I felt that I couldn't progress any further. And I think, you have huge imposter syndrome, even though you've done the job for 100 years before that. It feels coming back from work like you don't know what you're doing. And that you don't have the confidence necessarily to take a step up in case you've got to leave halfway through the day because your little girl's sick. And funny enough, about 2 months into coming back for work, and I went back to work 6 months after, so quite early. 2 months after coming back from work, I got a call from a headhunter asking me to move and work as the MD of a 40-person business. And I said no about 3 times to the headhunter because I didn't have the confidence. And because I
Oh
thought
my
actually that
God.
step up with the child, how would a new employer, once they know that I've got a child, they'll probably say no in any event. And it was my husband that gave me the push and said, you'll be great. Just try it. Just have the interview and see what happens. And I had the interview in the end. And it was also the headhunter who'd said to me, I call any man up at any point. He will always say yes to an interview, tell me he's worth it, got all the skills, and that he's going to be able to step up. And that he's worth double the salary that they're
Mm.
asking. But when I call a woman, I know that it's going to take at least 4 or 5 calls because they're a lot more loyal to their organization, and they won't necessarily have the confidence to go for the role.
Wow.
And the headhunter said also, it's, totally within your skill set. It's everything that you've been doing. You should go for it.
What a fantastic headhunter to have that awareness. I so relate to that story. I stayed in a job too long after my first because it was like kind of better. They know what I'm like pre-motherhood. Was it kind of that feeling like where you were? It's like, oh, well, they knew what I was like before I was a mother, so it's safer.
Yes, exactly that. Because you knew that at least you built up the trust with your current organization that if you have an emergency and suddenly you have to take 2 days off, then it's fine. And the worry
Mm.
about whether the next employer is going to be, and especially in such a senior role where, my boss was in Canada, not very available. So it was me with an office of 40. So it
Mm.
did feel then I didn't have the luxury, but I think a lot of it comes back to support and everything at home because I got the job, which I didn't think I'd get before that too. And, it was a stepping stone to some really great things. So I'm so pleased I took that leap. But I definitely thought at the early motherhood that was it, because I'd also asked for half a day off, which I got told was part-time, therefore I couldn't be thought no one would consider me for anything more senior in my current role. And I thought, well, that's it, for my career,
Mm.
at least for the foreseeable future. But it was great that I had the headhunter and my husband also pushing me to just take the shot.
That's such
Yeah.
excellent advocating. I think I speak to so many business owners here, and I think to see a CEO, MD woman of this level go through that imposter syndrome, we all need to know that that is what happens, and motherhood can do that to you. It sounds like for you, Nicole, because you were thriving and you thrived afterwards, but you had doubts.
Exactly.
You didn't have those doubts before, did you?
No, no, exactly. And it was the best thing. And you can do both. It just takes a lot of support, at home, as well as having that support of your team and everything.
Amazing. What about you, Sophie? What did your career journey look like before stepping into where you are now? Was the question.
So I initially started out in the world of advertising over at the Daily Mirror when I left university. And I did a lot of sales training there and quickly discovered the world of magazines. So after 3 years of a very interesting time at the Mirror, I moved over into magazine publishing, which I absolutely loved and has been kind of the bulk of my career, always working on female focused titles and brands, building out experiences and events that live beyond the magazines themselves, and also the digital offerings, and being able to communicate and talk to those women in those communities all throughout the year. I think when I've got 2 boys who are 5 today actually, and 7. And I think when I had both of them in whilst I was in publishing, and I came back from my second maternity leave, and I thought I've learned a lot in these roles. I was in a business at the time where my boss was not going to be going anywhere. She'd already been there 24 years and was certainly going to remain there for quite some time. And I also thought that whilst I'd love what I was doing, it was my priorities had really changed since becoming a mother, and also understanding if I'm going to have to pay a lot of money for someone else to look after my children 5 days a week, I really want to do something that's meaningful and purposeful, along with using all of the skills and experiences I'd had over all those years in the publishing industry. So out of the blue, an old colleague of mine got in touch who was working at AllBright at the time and said there was a fantastic role opening to come and expand the brand partnerships team. So I jumped at the chance. It was a building actually at the time that was right next to my old office, and I often peered in wondering what was going on in there. And it's been a really, really exciting journey. And I think what's most important for me is that Nicole and I are so lucky that we get to run a business that is both profit and purpose in equal measure, and really being able to drive impact in really positive ways, and being able to help women at those key periods of their lives that really matter most to them. So that's been my journey.
I love that, because Nicole, we were talking about the confidence hit that Nicole took after becoming a mother, but it sounds like the change for you, Sophie, was you became more purpose driven, that if I'm going to work and be away from my boys, I want it to be really meaningful. And did you think, obviously getting told about AllBright, but it just made sense for you to go to a female community that's helping drive women in their careers?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think knowing that whatever role you're doing, I think once you've had children, and if you are leaving them in the care of others, or even they're at school but someone else needs to go pick them up, those sorts of things, knowing that you're doing a role that you are really enjoying and you're getting a lot out of, and you're learning things all the time. For me, I think that was really vital for my own happiness in work.
I definitely agree with that. And so the merger of AllBright and Everywoman. So Nicole, were you at Everywoman pre this, or have you come after? What's been the vision of bringing these two brands together? Because it's still quite new, isn't it?
I started at Everywoman 7 years ago. The merger happened about a year and a half ago, actually, between the two businesses, and really brought together. It's really interesting, the journey between AllBright and Everywoman, because we both focus on advancing women, just in different ways. On the Everywoman side is very much the B2B side, so working with corporates to upskill women within businesses, whereas AllBright is very much about speaking to the individual women and brand partnerships. And obviously that, and Sophie, maybe you can share a little bit about that, because you've obviously come from the AllBright side.
Yeah, I think what's been wonderful is, with Nicole coming from that very strong B2B background and my experience being on B2C, we now have two sides of the business that can work together really coherently and feed off one another. Ultimately, we're all talking to the same woman. She is a woman in business, and whether she has come through a corporate who may have put her on a learning and training program, or she's attended one of our B2C networking events, we are able to support and give her the resources and the tools and the skills that she needs at the time that matters.
And we do find with women, it is those key moments. Women don't necessarily need support across all the time.
Yeah.
But it is when they're looking, suddenly they're not sure that where they're working is the correct place for them anymore. They're looking for a little bit more purpose or meaning. They've hit a different stage of their life. Perhaps now, they're menopausal, and suddenly, their priorities have shifted. They've just become a mother. Or, so there could be any times they might be looking for a promotion. They might be starting their own business. So we find that very often women come to us in those pivotal moments as well. And that's where we can offer them support and a bit more clarity, as well as the practical training and support.
It also has really helped us when we think about the programming and the content that we're creating. We're now very focused on supporting women at those key periods of time. So, for example, we've launched new impact campaigns. Of course, Motherhood Works is our new one. We launched a campaign at the end of last year to how to help and champion support women during midlife. And then, of course, there's those opportunities in a wider side, that if a business wants to be able to focus on how do they help women going through menopause in the workplace, we have those fantastic Power 90s and learning resources to support them also. So there's both that B2B and B2C side that we can support.
It really identifies the difference to me, is that, you really know your customer and know who you're working with and know these women. And it is those, and I know I identify with that, having gone through the motherhood journey. It is so different. They're huge for women versus our male counterparts. And the fact that you're now focusing, along with menopause, focusing on those pieces, as well as obviously having continuity where women are just going through a stage where they are readdressing their lives. But we're more likely to see it, I guess, is what you're saying, in the motherhood and the menopause time. And are there any recurring themes? Because you set up Motherhood Works, which is amazing. Have there been recurring themes you hear most often in this demographic?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've done a lot of research with the women in our community to understand what are their pain points, what are they telling us, and it's a lot around burnout, there's flexibility stigma, the mental load that you're carrying as a mother, and all the caregiving also of, at the age when you're having children, you may also have parents that you may need to be caring for as well. So there's a lot of things that you're trying to juggle. The challenge around ambition, it's really interesting to understand if what we've really realized is becoming a mother seems to amplify everyone's ambition, but it's actually the confidence that is the biggest blocker. And for us, one of the key reasons why we've built out our Motherhood Works initiative is to really shape the conversations around you've learned so many skills from becoming a mother and being a mother. How can we help them become transferable into the workplace, but how can we give you the confidence to really be able to utilize them properly? And I'd say the other things that we're hearing a lot through our research and our regular conversations is around that sort of identity shift and what it means from stepping into the role of, or becoming a mother, and then how your identity changes throughout that journey as your children go through different ages, and what that knock-on effect, I suppose, is to how we then define what success looks like. I think if I think about success for me when I first had my children versus now is different, primarily because the age and the needs of my children are different. So I think that's kind of an interesting point. I think, but also they're just really trying to, everyone wants something slightly different, and us being able to help support them through and navigate what that may look like, I think is really vital.
Yeah. And do you think it's really key for, say for example, 8 years ago, I mean, for most of my career, the gender pay gap has been awareness, a thing, and we're still doing that. But I think it was when I became a mother, I was like, well, this is a huge reason why we still have the gender pay gap, especially when we started to see the data of how well graduate women are doing, and all the great initiatives to get women in the workplace were doing really well. And I felt it genuinely wasn't being discussed. And I'd love your thoughts. Do you think it's better now that we're actually being like, okay, we're looking at the gender pay gap, but this is a huge gaping hole in it, and obviously menopause will be as well. But I just felt that motherhood is just so huge, but it's crazy that for a while it kind of got ignored. What do you guys think?
I think it's always been a core part to it. I mean, it probably wasn't talked about as much. I mean, in corporates, I think there is a lot more focus on returner programs. But I
Yeah.
think that is where the structured pathways back. I talked about my own experience coming back and that confidence having dropped. I think that's the same for a lot of women. And that's when the company actually reaching out and giving you the support you need, giving you the additional training if you need training, and that advancement is so key. And that's where we can actually on the corporate side see clear differences between organizations that invest in women and those that don't. Because those that invest, who also have decent maternity leave policies, paternity leave policies, and then have a structured returner program, and then offer ongoing training and ensuring things, just simple things like ensuring that if there is a role available, that there is a mix of candidates, men, women, ethnicity, so that you can ensure that actually the best person does get the job at the end. I think there's all sorts of things that have, and there are some organizations doing great things in terms of helping to reinforce that, because I think across the board, it is the 30s where all industries start losing women. That is really the pipeline gap. And that is because, and in some instances, it can't be helped because there are some women who do just want to stay home and raise their kids, which I totally get. Or they might want to start a new career as an entrepreneur, find something more flexible. But the more the companies can go about actually supporting and giving them, staying in their current role as an option, the better. That will definitely help in terms of the gender pay gap.
And it sounds like that confidence piece is like, so if if like you didn't go for that role, Nicole, and it's like so that
I
making
did
sure
actually,
that
and I did actually get it in the end, but I
oh
didn't. I said no. Yeah, I said no 3 times,
oh
but
yeah,
then
sorry.
I did
Yeah, you
eventually get
initially
it.
weren't
Yeah,
confident, but you thankfully had a really good headhunter and husband to support you through it. But not all women would, and it's
yeah.
making sure then as a company, how can they identify a woman that should go for that role, isn't it? That a man might naturally go for, which is interesting.
I was just going to add to what Nicole was saying is as part of our Motherhood Works campaign, it's not only focusing on the women in our community and giving them the tools, we're actually bringing together 20 senior leaders from our corporate side of the business to hear how they are supporting women in the workplace who are not only mothers, but also then the sort of mental well-being aspects around that, and see if we can create a sort of blueprint and those learnings and findings that we can then feed out to other businesses to help encourage them to improve the opportunities that they offer their women in their workplace.
That's fantastic, and it just all helps you with that data as well, of like showing the examples of how it hates it, but a lot of these organisations be how it's going to benefit them to keep women in these roles and continue progressing their careers in house. Because we often talk about, it's been a long thing for a long time about having it all, but we all know there are trade-offs. And after that return, and after, what do you think is truly needed for women to succeed in the workplace without feeling like it's all coming at the expense of family life?
I would say it's something actually Nicole and I and our SLT team talk about a lot, about what can we do in our own business to support women and help them thrive, but also what did we need when we returned to work, and what do we actually still absolutely need now? And I think one of the key aspects for us is around flexibility and being in a workplace where you are trusted to do your role but with an element of flexibility that works best for you. I personally find that if I'm allowed to have that freedom of working around those times that matter most. Like, I don't personally want to miss bath time, but I'm very happy to jump onto a call later on, or look at some emails if I've logged out early, or we have a company policy that, our diaries are all open. But if you've got children's sports day, you've got music recital to go to, put them in your diary, give everyone in your teams the permission to be able to go and do exactly the same, and work around those moments, because there's nothing worse. And I've been there where I actually missed a sports day once because I was too afraid to ask my boss to go. And when I mentioned it up to her afterwards, she said, "Of course you should have gone." But I really didn't feel that it was going to be approved, and it was going to be, I would be looked down upon for doing it. And that's one of my biggest regrets. And I think we feel very passionate about making sure everyone's got that flexibility that they really need to thrive.
That role modeling, I think, is just so vital to
Yeah.
make sure that people feel, because it's fine to say, yes, you can go to that sports day, but actually, if no one else is doing it and there's a culture of presenteeism all the time, no one's going to take that. So I think it is really important. And I actually think, COVID, for all the downsides, and it was obviously a terrible period, the fact that it did make it a bit easier, and to see that people could work from home, that there could be a bit more flexibility, I think has been fantastic.
Yeah.
In terms of the people do understand flexibility more than what they did before.
We are seeing some places roll it back though, and obviously I doubt it's the organisations you guys are working with, because they're working with you for a reason. But does that concern you at all? Because I am having a lot of women now saying, I feel like it's going backwards in so many places, or it's getting harder again, especially as we're going through uncertain economic times.
It tends to be for me, it doesn't seem like it. A lot of it seems to be 3 or 4 days a week back in the office versus full time. So it does seem that there is still some flex. I do understand that for some industries it may not be possible to do it constantly. I know financial services, are recalling a lot of people back to work. I think it's that relationship with your manager, it's the overall policies, because you can still be at work, but I mean, it's having the flexibility to say, I need to work from home today because I'm going to a sports day. And it's about putting those moments that you need in your calendar first, and it's building that culture where it's accepted to do so, that you don't. And I mean, there are challenges still in certain industries for sure, where work gets done over drinks on a golf course.
Yeah.
There are still some cultures that are workplace cultures that are still quite archaic that way. But it is then about looking and examining those cultures to see how they can change, putting in some, breakfasts and lunches rather than evening drinks. But there are some cultures that just haven't moved with the times or have reverted back, unfortunately, but not all, and I would say not the majority.
Yeah, we've got to keep up with that hope as well. And for me, I run a team of 40 with my business, and I have completely open calendar and sports days in there for tomorrow, as well as the backup. I have 2 sports days but 2 backups, so I have 4 days blocked out and hoping it's only 2. But and is that something you help your clients support? Because also sometimes like a manager might not be a parent, so can't role model putting sports day in the calendar. What are other things managers and leaders can do to prevent what Sophie went through? Because I'm sure you know that story hasn't stopped with other people.
I think it is. I mean, we talk a lot about male allies, and we've got various programs where, they do bring a lot of the men along with them. I mean, we work with some very male dominated industries and corporates that are predominantly male. But then it's about getting the men into those discussions. So we run various training programs called Power 90s, actually, where they're 90-minute sessions. We've done things, for example, on menopause, and we brought in men into that conversation as well. And they've left it saying, well, I just didn't understand that. And I remember after one of our conferences, it was on, we had someone who was talking about motherhood, someone talking about menopause. And after the back of that, we actually spoke to one of the other corporates there who said, we've now invested in 2 policies, one to support mothers, one to support menopause, because we just didn't realize the impact. So sometimes I think what's important is those that sharing of story. We have sessions called Courageous Conversations that we've had, and I think sometimes those are just really eye-opening, because until people have heard the story, it's possibly not as real, and they don't realize, managers, sometimes it's just not realizing the impact that they're having. So I think it's about awareness, and whether they do that. This is where employee resource groups are also brilliant in terms of if there's a parenthood working group, having mothers working group, all of those. There are a lot of women's group in various corporates as well, and it's about having men involved in those conversations. Often you do find men as their executive sponsors, or sometimes as the leads as well. It's just bringing everyone into the conversation and ensuring that there's awareness about it. I think is just so key to this.
And do you think on that, I'm so passionate as well. Like, I know I couldn't do what I do with my kids without a husband who gets it, he's the cook, he has his roles, and he also works flexibly. So we're kind of like a tick box for like an ideal family setup in 2026. Minus we don't have any family living near us. That would be like, we'd be perfect if we had grandparents near us. I think that would be like the icing on the cake, is having that support network. But how much of this, and I wonder if like sometimes you work with male allies, this suddenly helps them realize, I'm doing so well here because I do have a wife at home who's picking this all up, and then realizing that that wife is in their room and doing that and this. Do you think that helps bring a focus on equality in the home? How much has helped you guys on your journey on that?
Yeah, I'm very similar to you. I'm extremely lucky that my husband runs his own business and he works from home. So he's very present. He's often helping on school drop-offs and sorting out kids' teas and sporting activities and on clubs and those sorts of things. If I'm really honest, without that support, like you, I don't have family anywhere nearby. Yes, we have to get some additional childcare help in, but we all know how expensive that is. And if I'm honest with that, if he was actually in a role that had to be in the office at 7 a.m. in the morning, which I know a lot of men are, it would really make my working life very, very difficult. And we're fortunate that we're in a business that we do have that flexibility where we need it. But I know so many, families who they are restricted by that. So yeah, I do feel very, very lucky to have that support.
And I think this is where the pay gap comes into play. I think a lot of women also drop out because actually with the cost of childcare, it just doesn't make sense for them to go back to their jobs. I've got a number of friends who made that decision. Once they weighed up what they were actually going to take home after childcare, it just wasn't worth it. So they've ended up staying at home. So I think, it is really lucky when you can rely on some family support, and but it is challenging for any women who are on a kind of average salary to actually see that, work is worth it.
Yeah.
And that it's worth it to go back And I do think that this then makes it so tricky in terms of, and this is where we talk about the motherhood penalty, that, women earn less for every year that they're a mother.
Mm.
The stats are quite stark in terms of that lack of pay. Pensions, there's a huge gap in terms of pensions. I
Oh,
mean,
student loans is another one as well. You get charged when you're not earning money, which is crazy. So all those are adding up, aren't they? I tell you what, the best advice someone gave me, because I was on a very average salary when I became a mum, about just about covered the cost of childcare. It was like, would it be worth it? But it was actually being like, well, actually, why is it looked at as my salary and not both of ours? And I have as much potential as my husband does to progress, and that's where we always came from. And not saying we've done things perfectly, but it was never looked at, oh, Caroline just don't work, because it was like, well, right now the numbers don't look great, still don't, with children, but you merge them together and then just know it wasn't about my salary then. It was like, well, what's my salary going to be in 10 years time, kind of thing. And that was the choice that we made. So I always think there's something about awareness of that, because again, just by it falling automatically on the woman's salary, even if it is lower, isn't, I think we did the quite classic thing. I got a pay dip when I became a mum, and my husband got a pay rise.
One of the things that we've actually put in place, which has been a huge benefit, I also personally hugely benefited from this for our team, is that we took a company benefit out where you can pay for all of your childcare pre-tax. And that has
Amazing.
been a significant saving. And we've noticed a lot of our corporate partners are really rolling that out within their businesses. It's so cost effective for us running a business, but the impact for the families is absolutely enormous. And it certainly was a major factor for me being able to remain at work.
That's great. Have you partnered with an organisation for that, just in
Yes,
case
it's
anyone's
called
looking
Yellow
for
Nest.
information?
Yellow
Yellow
Nest.
Nest. Okay. No, very
And
interesting.
yeah, they're fantastic at being able to support families. And in addition, it's got a wonderful purpose-led element to it, where even the childcare providers get vouchers to be able to then buy books and toys with some of the
Amazing.
savings that are made as well. So it's
Yeah.
a win for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. And that is a way to help it, isn't it? That can make a huge difference, because I know there was a really good one in place when my first child was born that I managed to hop onto. That was a similar tax-free one. And then obviously a lot of things change. So, like, bearing all of this in mind, we want more women in leadership. We know that still the numbers of the top leaders and top organizations isn't great. What do you think could change over the next 5 years that would really help that demographic rise?
I think it comes back to two things. I mean, first of all, the organizations, and it's that support. I mean, if you want to change things, it is about investing in your women. So it is the training and development, and it's just the fair opportunities, ensuring that you viewing a whole range of candidates, not using, and it's not biased as well, because unconscious bias does slip in there. If you're thinking of someone who will be a great leader, you think of someone you like yourself, and you may then just hire someone like yourself to fill that gap. And if all the leaders have always been white men, then you're going to end up with another rung of white men coming through. So it is just being cognizant and recognizing that people are different and valuing that diversity, and also being aware that women are probably not going to shout about their accomplishments. So it is about, and that's where I think the training comes in as well, in terms of the development and the confidence. Confidence, I think saying that all women don't have confidence is also a little bit of a myth. It does, they may not shout about their accomplishments as much, but not all women have confidence issues. But it is about, how do we make sure that people are shouting about their accomplishments, because it's not necessarily, I think sometimes there is the mentality that I work really hard, so therefore I will get the promotion, whereas sometimes it is the loudest voices. So I think the training and development, leadership development, alongside a really supportive culture, and an organization actually realizing where the weaknesses are. Is it when women are returning back to work, and does that mean that there's a returner policy? Is it that they're not actually attracting enough women right at the bottom rung? And does that mean that they need to be putting in a few more apprenticeship programs, for example? Or what is it about their recruitment side? And it is then giving, really having a focused effort on getting more women onto boards, because I think that as soon as you've got a more diverse board, the profitability increases. I mean, it's proven, that the diversity means that your company is going to be more profitable at board level. And as soon as you got more women in boards, they're more likely to pull more women up the pipeline as well. And so you will end up by default with a more diverse industry as well. So I think there are a number of things, and I think that individuals can do that things themselves as well. It is about, because it's not all on the organization, it's also on all of us also to to push for further training or recognize what it is that we need and go for it. Yeah, those are some of my thoughts. Sophie?
I would just also add that there's a lot of women in our community who are female business owners and
Yep.
entrepreneurs, and it's also very much our responsibility to be able to support them through this motherhood journey as well, to give them the role models, to give them the resources and support that they need as well, because they do naturally vary significantly from someone who's within a corporate organization. So, for example, with our Motherhood Works campaign and at the event that we've got later this month, we've got Freddie Harrell coming in to have a conversation with us, and she is talking very openly about her journey as an entrepreneur and having children and the huge challenges that came with that. And we really encourage women to be able to talk to us honestly and openly, to become essentially those role models, and to see how she navigated that very, very difficult and challenging time to where she is now, with children who are nearly 10 years old, etc. So I think it's important that we are able to give that support to women in all different career journeys.
Yeah. And it's exciting that, like what you said, Nicole, we've got the data now, because even though we know it's good, but like you can't argue with data, which ultimately these leaders love. And it's the same though for female business owners, isn't it, Sophie? We're seeing they're more likely to grow, be profitable at the minute, and make money, which is super exciting. And my personal passion is all about a podcast for mothers who are business owners, having gone through that journey myself. And something I do want to talk about, because I'm from the assistant industry, a hugely female industry that has been hugely let down by learning and development opportunities for years, progressive opportunities, because it is a female industry. It was a very hidden one. And I think something we're seeing exciting is that starting to change. But I sometimes feel, and now I'm a business owner in a very female space. And I think it's interesting, because I do think a lot of women do start businesses from lived experiences. Has that been your experience, Sophie, versus men might go a little bit gung-ho and go into something they don't know, whereas women bring their experience and start a business from there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we see a lot within our community of women who've been in very successful corporate careers and then transitioning from in their late 30s, 40s, 50s into setting something up because of a lived experience. And I think taking the skills that they've learned along the way and then putting that into practice seems to be hugely beneficial. We've got a fantastic entrepreneur award program that has been running for over 25 years from Everywoman, and following and seeing those journeys of those incredible entrepreneurs that go through, of women of all ages, but so many of them seems to come from a need of something that they or someone close to them needed, and they seem to be the most successful.
They do tend to be a lot more purpose driven as
Mm.
well, in terms of the types of businesses that they fund. That they found. What is interesting is that only about 2% of VC money actually goes into female founders.
Yeah.
So it's such a small amount. But, when they succeed, they tend to also uplift the communities around them, because it's more purpose driven, I would say, that the businesses they found. Yeah.
I definitely relate to that and see that on the podcast all the time. And do you ever think, because working in a female industry, and at AllBright, I had the pleasure of meeting so many female founders, and so many of us will be working in, say, my industry as virtual assistants, well-being, birth work, care-based businesses like nannies and things like that. I have seen, I do think there's an element that they're not taken as seriously as industries where you might have a more broader demographic. Have you ever seen that yourself, or seen any difference in industries and how they get perceived?
I think there's a big difference in terms of the challenges with every industry. I can't talk to that industry in specific, but we see, for example, in tech, There's a huge drop off. We run a number of tech programs. We've got a tech awards and a tech forum. We find that there's a big drop off from, although about we're up to about 50-50 in terms of graduates from STEM subjects. But that significantly, a lot of the women don't go into tech industries after that. So you find that actually there are very few right at the bottom, of the funnel. So actually moving into tech roles, I think overall, I think there's only about 25% or 27% of women in tech roles overall. And that starts from the bottom. Whereas you look at something like insurance, we run an insurance forum, and there the challenge is senior women. They actually have no problems attracting women into insurance. But because of the male dominated nature and because of problems with progression, everything that we've spoken about before, there are very few in senior leadership positions. So that's where their challenge lies. Every industry is really different once you start to dive into it. And the issues, transport and logistics, is very much a perception issue that, they don't think that women should they don't naturally feel that this is an industry for them. So again, you've got very low rates of women across transport and logistics, and they're really trying to change that. So I think it differs per industry totally.
Sophie, have you noticed a difference in business owners and their challenges?
I would say it is so broad from a business owner perspective on the sector. We have women in our community working across so many different sectors that I would say we see it less from that perspective versus perhaps from the corporate side, where it's very clear in those very male dominated sectors how difficult that is.
And going to end, we've got to end shortly, but just looking at the Motherhood Works Summit, which is hugely exciting, because I have to say, I know AllBright was fantastic, I loved it, but there wasn't a lot on the motherhood side. I actually did one event there, so it's really exciting that this is an area you're now working and focusing on. What are you hoping women walk away from that event with?
We really want to, through so the event is one part of the overall initiative, and everything we're trying to do is shift the narrative from motherhood penalty to motherhood power. And we want the women who are attending that event, there's 100 women coming, to walk away and feel empowered, encouraged, excited, have new role models, have new inspiration to find new ways of working, to connect with other like-minded, interesting women who they may not come across in their normal day-to-day. And I think that's what's so exciting about these types of events. Most of the women are all coming on their own, and with the opportunity then to network and connect with more interesting and inspiring people on the day.
I'm coming on my own, so anyone can say hi to me, but you end up bumping into people once you've done a lot of the scene. Absolutely. So I think just to make that awareness, if it's your first one, there'll be future events, you'll get to know people. And Nicole, what's next for the programme after that for Motherhood Works?
So I think it's carried across everything that we do, really. I mean, this is a whole initiative, and we want to collect data. We're looking on site at creating a living archive, which you'll then be part of, Caroline, just of thoughts and feelings of being part of motherhood. We obviously have a lot on we've launched a new editorial site called the AllBright, which, if you're not reading it, you should be. It's got some fabulous articles. It's all sorts of features related to motherhood and sharing of different voices on that site. And we've, of course, got Live Well coming up in September, which again will have an element to it that's focused on motherhood. We've woven it basically throughout our programming throughout the year, so that it doesn't just live as one event. It is an initiative we want, to focus on throughout the whole year.
To say we're working already now on our plans for 2027 and how we can really broaden out bringing those findings together from both how corporates can support more mothers and families in their own businesses, and how in addition we can help the individuals. So we've got some really exciting plans to continue to grow this for next year.
It's so exciting. I guess weaving it into other events, it means you can get women who might be pre-motherhood who don't want to go to a whole event, but start to feel in that room if that's something they're preparing for, which I'm quite passionate about for the generations before us, so we're not all as shocked like we were going into motherhood.
Right, yes.
Thank you, ladies. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm really excited. Hopefully, meet you properly at the event. And and come to it. Something I'd like to close on is, for me, I had a whole journey with finding my joy again after motherhood, after almost losing our second child. And I think something that we can all carry as mothers is to really be a bit rebellious and find and remember what brings us joy, and do it. So what is something, we've had everything from like skipping in the garden to mine is going to the theatre and just making sure I'm doing that regularly. What's your selfish joy just for you?
For me, it's actually been after having my little boy, I rediscovered photography, which I love. And that works very hand in hand because you've got a baby there that can't move and who just has to be, it doesn't mind having his photo taken. But I really got back into photography, which brings me a lot of joy. And actually just getting moving again, I think in the last few years with the kids, they're now 11 and 13. I haven't been to the gym for ages, but in the last 2 years, just actually getting back into gym and actually having that time just for myself and to take care of myself has just been so important and so great. Yeah, so that's me.
I love that. So creative and moving in both of those. So I love that, Nicole. Sophie?
I would say for me, it's actually gardening. I didn't know how to garden, and I wouldn't say I had green fingers before, but now I've got really into it, and as have my children. So they've got their own little garden digging set and they grow their vegetables. And we've now got a beehive. So we're all trying to keep that going together as a family, and it's actually a wonderful thing to switch off from work or hop out into the garden on a Saturday morning and just have some quiet time, whether it's on my own or with the family. I love it.
I love that, getting to know it. Well, thank you both so much. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about AllBright Everywoman?
So www.allbrighterverywoman.com. And we've also got our editorial site, which is theallbright.com. So either or, visit both, sign up to our newsletter, and I think we still have a few limited spaces available for our motherhood event. So do have a look. You can find that again through the Albright.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see more about Motherhood Works in the future.
Thanks so much.
Fantastic. Thanks,
Thank you.
Caroline.